So they would say, I'm not really into Dan, and then you'll see their program and they've got some key concepts, copy and pasted from Dan's principles. It's great. Because are they Dan's principles, or are they an eclectic collection of the general rules that we should apply to training? And that was really empowering. So I don't know how I'm answering your question, but what I would say here is that I like to stress check. I like to understand something deeply from an individual. And even when I'm 100% committed, I'm married to that concept, I want to stress check it. I wouldn't stress check my marriage. That's the wrong thing to say. But having kids is the stress check of your marriage, quite frankly. Going through COVID, we've near enough got a COVID baby, right? We lost all of our consultants. I lost all of my income. I lost my training group. And I was sick for 3 months during COVID. If that's not a stress check, then maybe, no, that is a stress check, right? But in the concepts, in understanding deeper theory, I always quiz and try to understand deeply. Now, your point was, if I was to look at my own iterations, what would I say? And I would say that I've taken track and field principles, understood what I would say is Dan Paff's planning principles, at least how I see it. I've tried to use it in developing athletes and had reasonable success, taking a group of 6 or 7 kids from a 2-mile radius of North London, and 6 years later, all of them going to the Olympics, and some of them being world medalists. And another 5 years later, I'm looking at them and they're with other coaches and they're still doing great things. Taking that same principle and process and applying it to rugby and it having success within the correct environment. Applying it to rehab, applying it to football, soccer. And then being able to coach other people to take it on board and create their own iterations. So I guess the answer to your question is, I think the basic principles were really clear early doors, and then knowing how to stretch or shrink is really been what the past 10 years is. And actually, when I did my master's thesis, I said to myself, why am I going into athletics? And the answer was, if I can peak an individual within a certain number of days after a 300-day cycle of training and get them fittest, fastest, strongest, and most confident in that very discrete area by juggling all of these training components over time, if I can solve that puzzle, every other team sport, every other rehab is going to be easy. Right. So that was really the PhD for me. If I can solve and create clear processes for planning and periodization for track and field, for very challenging things, stopwatch sports, all very challenging, then I'll be able to shrink it, manipulate it, make sense of it when you start to dilute it when it comes into team sports. Yeah.
So that's why you've decided to now come over to America and Australia and just continue to build this brand. It's unbelievable that like you said, you had that level of success exactly where you're from. And then on your quest for world domination and getting, what is it? In the Avengers movies, all the different stones, the Infinity Stones on your hand, just the different countries that you're going to go.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm aware that I'm only me and my brand is Jonas from the brand should be Speedworks. And I can only coach so many people, and I get more enjoyment from talking to a fitness coach or a rehabber in a team who's had me in for 6 weeks to learn things, and they've jumped on Zooms and they've done the course and they've gone and practiced, and they now feel very competent to do something that in their sport is different. Like speed training in team sports only 5 years ago was like, what's the bloody point? Running mechanics for injuries only 2 years ago was very much, there is no correlation. The ivory towers of research will say we haven't had the research. So if the research isn't there, then you can't say it's true. And it's not that I want to prove people wrong, because that's not my motivation at all. It's that I see it as being a truth, and it feels like most of the arguments for it not being a truth, that movement matters, that people will argue that's not a truth or is low in a priority, most of those arguments are based on lack of skill, lack of expertise, not actually trying fully, not trying in the right environment, or bloody fear of trying in the first place. Yeah. And that the echo chambers of that sport it's always been done this way and all of those other things. And that's not for this sport, or our football players aren't sprinters, so we don't need that information. All of that echo chamber has been the biggest barrier. So one sport, one injury at a time, I just wanted to show that it's BS, essentially, and empower people to make better decisions. And am I trying to get my infinity rings? Yeah, maybe, for sure. I think at the end of the day, 2 arms, 2 legs, running, gravity, generally on turf. Each sport has its individual nuances, but we all know that player availability is critical. We all know that during game-changing situations, there's a break, there's a sprint, there's a transition run. We all know that invasion games are about creating and taking space, and that, yes, there's the cognitive, there is the reading shapes, and there is the making decisions thing, and actually seeing the holes and the gaps. But once a gap is seen, you need to have the confidence and the hardware to go through that gap. So we know that being able to run fast, break quickly, or stop quickly, change direction quickly, but also all of those things done efficiently increases the tolerance of the players, potentially increases the effectiveness of the players, and definitely increases their confidence. So these things are like clear as day, but there are so many environments that we ignore it until someone's hurt, or until a coach says, this is an issue, go and address it, as opposed to it being the fundamental of what you use to both, Jordan Mendegucci says, prepare and repair. If you have a clear model of movement, you know how to prepare. And Vern says movements, not muscles. But if you have a very clear understanding of the functional biology, the muscles, and how that connects to the movements, then you have your strength and conditioning portfolio. If you have a clear understanding of the movements and the biomechanics and what makes people efficient, then you have even more justification for that strength and conditioning portfolio. So I just hear so much survivorship bias and so much fear in change that it irritates me, because I know that those are the 2 barriers to people learning. So it's because I know that's a barrier to people learning and it irritates me, I want to teach to get over those barriers. Because then the more people that are applying a more fundamental based process, the more investigation happening in that environment, the more insights, the more I learn. So it's just selfish. I want more people to know what I know so they can take it into their environments and come back and tell me the shit I don't know right now. Yeah. Or give me confidence that I know some more shit. Either way, it's probably very selfish of me to try to educate as many people as I can. Again, why create speed solutions? I posted a video. It's got nearly 500,000 views.
Oh, wow.
Read the comments. Everyone looks at running a tiny bit differently. And that's fine. Again, blindfolded people looking at an elephant and pulling the tail and say, oh, it might be a snake. Pulling the ear and go, it might be a handbag or whatever it is, right? But the reality is, I would love to be in a place where we collect all of those differences and we can be aware of the commonalities. Because if we can do that, is the best, most effective and exciting research project in the world. People collectively in different environments, different sports, with different types of athletes at different stages in their career, collecting similar data sets with a similar process to being able to communicate and learn with each other. Like that to me is the ultimate research project. So
Yeah, that sounds like a massive international, interdisciplinary, like metadata.
and I've talked to some of the best researchers in Australia, in South Africa, in the UK, and America, and I've said, guys, what if we collaborate? What if we collaborate? What if we're all using the same kind of system and we collaborate and we can get over what people talk, oh yeah, he's a football player, he shouldn't sprint like this. Look at the fastest football players and they look like track and field athletes. Look at the slowest track and field athletes and they look like football players. So are we saying that our sport doesn't allow us to do something, or the athlete shouldn't? Or are we saying the level of the athlete and the hardware that they have in their limbs and the software that they have?
Congratulations on making it to the end of the video. Why don't you celebrate by watching more videos just like it? You can also help us on our quest to placate the algorithm gods by liking, sharing, subscribing, and commenting. Thank you.